Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me okay? In the back too? Okay, thank you all for coming here. My name is Aaron Hegde. I'm a professor of economics and ag business here. I'm also the executive director for the Grimm Family Center for Ag Business. And today we have another installment of our continuing series, the speaker series that we hold on the last Wednesday of every month. And we have an amazing speaker here with us today, and I'll introduce him in just a little bit. Before I do, I want to make sure I acknowledge some of the people without whom this stuff wouldn't happen. So, of course, the Grimm family, they gave us a very generous donation a few years ago to establish the center so that it could be a conduit between the university and the agriculture industry. So this is one of the series of things we do. We also do student research. We have interns. We also do some applied research, publish a journal, and lots of other wonderful things. So, and we also have this as our mascot. His name is Bartholomew. And one of you can win this after Mr. Murray's talk when it ends. You have a chance to win that as well as one of these coffee things. So especially today, the event obviously would not be possible without a few people. So I'd like to acknowledge them. So the most important of all of that is Tricia Harmon, who's in the back. She's the support for the Grimm Frontier. Yes, please. And then when you checked in, there were two of our interns there. You'll see one of them walking around taking pictures, and that's the young lady in the back there standing up, Chantal. As well as Crystal, who's also another one who was signing up, and she'll do the event where we give away BART. So she'll do that later. And then the people in the library, so they're always very helpful. So behind the camera, you'll see Bree. So she'll be recording this, and then it'll be available. And then Frank behind the curtain here, who's the master for the sound and the video and stuff. So thank you, Frank. And of course, thank you to all of you for being here. I also have a couple of my colleagues from the Department of Economics. Kind of sitting on straddling the chair over there is Dr. Deal. He's also the director of the Ag Business Program. And in the back is Dr. Michieka. You want to wave, sir? Yes. And then somewhere here or hiding there among the students is Dr. Ryan. And of course, I have to introduce a very important dignitary. Standing in the back is our Vice President for Advancement, Mr. Heath Niemeyer. And as I said, thank you all for being here. Without all of you, without all this support, and of course, without our speaker, none of this would happen. And the objective here is, for all of you students, especially in the Ag Business Program, is to kind of learn what happens in the industry and some of the key important people that are really legends in the industry who've done a lot of the hard work. And I think what you will see is common. We had a speaker last month, and you'll see with today's speaker also is just hard work. I mean, that's just, you cannot do anything without hard work. And of course, family too. So, and along with, I'll introduce Steve, but also with him are a couple of people. So his wife, Vicky, is up here in the front. And Steve said this, not me, the brains behind the operation. Rose is here in the front. And then also Tony is here in the front. I think he helped put the PowerPoint together. So thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. So as I said, we're really privileged to host a true leader in Kern County agriculture, someone whose journey embodies hard work, sustainability, and family values. So from starting with just a credit card and a dream to cultivating over 300 thriving acres here in Kern County, including the big red barns. If you're all driven out on 58, you'll see that. So Steve, Mr. Murray's story is not just about farming. It's about cultivating innovation and community. So we're here tonight to hear his insights and to be inspired for all of you who are the next generation of ag leaders. And the learning is not just limited to the classroom, right? So you'll hear some words of wisdom and all the hard work, and also the fun that goes into it. And also, Mr. Murray has on the board of directors for the Kern County Farm Bureau. He's also very much involved with the Sister City Project, as well as many other local organizations. He gives back a lot to the community, and I'm sure everybody knows Murray Family Farms. If you don't, you'll find out more about it today. And he also generously donated some pumpkins, which all of you, after the talk, will go down in front of Student Union and you'll be painting those. We can't carve because the university doesn't trust you all with knives. They said plastic knives. I said, we'll be here all night. So we're going to paint them instead. And then, of course, we have small pumpkins and we have the big ones from Murray Family Farms. And you can take the big ones with you. So without further ado, I have the privilege of introducing Mr. Steve Murray.
I'm going to use the screen there. I did want to make a comment about Aaron, that when you guys look back, that you're going to realize that you got to know this guy, because he is a mover and shaker in this community. That I'm involved over at BC. There's a agricultural boosters advisors group that is there, and that even though he's over here, he's over there connecting the two campuses together. And that what's interesting is that he will say things that are really make a lot of sense and very intelligent. And we look at each other and say, that's never going to happen. It makes too much sense. When at the Farm Bureau, he's on the Farm Bureau board, that he is involved and engaged in this campus, this community, and that you will look back someday and say, I'm so glad that I got to know. He was one of the diamonds that you got to get to know here at this campus. So I just want to say what a great individual he is. So I start with a joke.
That was the joke I thought.
So what did the farmer say when he lost his tractor? Where's my tractor? Since we've got the Murray Family Farms, and this year our specialty has been scarecrows, and so we've got a lot of scarecrows out there on the farm, and we had we bring in a lot of school kids, and so we had some of the schools that wanted to. We gave them the supplies, and they produced their own scarecrows. And during our employee orientation for October, where we had about 100 people there, that we year round, we're a 300-acre farm, which puts us about as average for Kern County and in the Central Valley. We're an average size farm, but we're very intensive. And because of that, it requires a lot of people working for us. And so we have about 90 year-round employees. But in the spring, when we're going to farmers markets, then we'll bring in, 60, 70 people to go to some of the best farmers markets that there are: Santa Barbara, Santa Monica, Hollywood, Beverly Hills. If it's down at Mar Vista, which is part of Muscle Beach and whatnot, and that in that area we have a very strong presence. But during our farmers market season, we have seasonal jobs for people to come in, and a lot of people come in and it's their first time opportunity. In October, we bring in 100 people in addition to the 90 that we have as year-round employees. And in agriculture, there is a lot of work that is seasonal, but that I just want to say that in this valley that Kern County is the largest. goes back and forth between Kern County, Tulare County, Fresno County as to which the biggest county is in agriculture. But if you go within 100 miles of here, it's half of all the fruits and vegetables that are grown in the entire United States, half of all the fruits and vegetables. Number 2 is Florida with 10%. So that's how significant this 100-mile area here, it's about 6-county area, that if you look at all the almonds, literally all the almonds, pistachios, within this valley, most all of the walnuts grown in the United States are grown in this area. It is a treasure of the United States. I think that if you look over on the other side on oil, that 85% of all of the produced oil in California also comes out of this county. That up until COVID, and it's gotten a little more difficult, but that half of all the people that live in this county have the ability to buy their home. And so it's the most affordable housing. What you find in agriculture that is really amazing is that you can come here, and that the American dream used to be home ownership, and it's certainly more affordable here than it is anywhere else in California and in most places in the United States. But the American dream has moved from being home ownership to being ownership of your own business. And in agriculture, there's such a diversity of opportunities here that you can start off as a truck driver and then eventually buy a truck and buy 2 trucks, and then you're a trucking company, and then you're an employer of other people. And the dream here is business ownership, that you can get a degree in plant science like I did and get a job as an agricultural consultant and have somebody else pay for your car and for your insurance and for your, it's nice when you don't have to pay for your car. You don't have to pay for your auto insurance. You don't have to pay for all these things that take such a bite out of your paycheck. And then you can start farming on the side, which is how I became a farmer. I first got a degree, and it was because of that degree that it opened up everything else for me. And so one of the 3 pillars that I have is my emphasis on education, that it is the great separator here, because if you get a degree, then the opportunities, it doesn't matter, even if you don't have a degree, if you've got special skill sets where you can find good employment here and raise a family. And so it is a great place. It's a great industry. A lot of people come here to go to school, I came here as a consultant and ended up literally putting roots in the ground and thriving. And so a lot of people, I went from California to Idaho and then back to Bakersfield, and they said, "Are you being punished?" So again, I just want to say that I'm so grateful to be here, and it's a real privilege to be able to stand up here and talk with you. Here we go. And I think that one of the things that's most important to me and my wife is improving the quality of people's lives. And we do that through what we do, through the fruit that we grow, through the people that we offer employment, the places we go down in Southern California where you see movie stars and famous people, rich people. They just are so grateful and appreciative for what we're offering. I come from a line of farmers. My family and my roots were down in the Riverside area. And this is a picture of my grandfather, and this was in 1916, and that his pig had 4 grand championships. He traveled around the United States. He had 30 first place medals. He was a progressive Riverside farmer, and that this picture was taken in 1916 on the cover of Swine magazine. But that 1916 and 1921, he was beekeeping, and it was the day my mother was born that he had an explosion and died from bee stings and from burns. And so I come from a line of a matriarchal family where the women were the leaders. And the beautiful thing about California was it was part of Spain at one time, and the Moors, went to the wars, and they wanted their families to retain their inheritance. And so it was community state that allowed women to become leaders. And you look at some of the greatest philanthropists are women in California, and you look at Scripps, you look at Stanford, you look at many of these places. It was the wives who did the philanthropy, and it afforded my grandmother to become a realtor, become a farmer in her own name, in her own right. And so I come from a maternal line. This is my father, and this is when he was in military school milking a cow, actually. But that in our house, that he was from a family of plumbers in LA and came to Riverside because he wanted to be a farmer, and he ended up starting to farm and getting into agriculture. And that, but we had a house in a subdivision, and we took out all of the landscaping and we planted 50 trees of 50 varieties, one tree each. And that unfortunately he died young of a heart attack. And so when I was a teenager, lost my father. My mother went through bankruptcy. All of the cars in our house, our family were repossessed. We went on food stamps. I became a pro of going into the financial aid office and getting part of my education through grants and scholarships. I also worked 2 jobs. I was a custodian, and I was also a lifeguard and a swimming instructor. And when my father died, not only did we have 50 fruit trees, we had 6 varieties of avocados, and that was our primary protein that we had. The food stamps gave us other proteins, and I put in a vegetable garden. My girlfriend worked for the Burpee Distribution Center, and a lot of times seeds would go, where the germination rate would go down. And so we literally fed the family. There was 5 kids in our family off of our yard and our vegetable garden. And that today, when we developed Murray Family Farms, we put in 50 trees of 50 varieties. And that we put in, the vegetables that we grow there and whatnot was modeled after that. I loved birds, and I wanted to be a veterinarian. And that it was when I got a B in zoology that I realized I would never be accepted to veterinary school, and changed my major to plant science. And then it took me in a sidebar, but I love gardening, but I really thought I wanted to be a vet. But the B, I knew I'd never get into vet school, so I changed to plant science. This is a picture of my mother, and she never married after my father passed away, but that she had she had an easy disposition, and I think I inherited her disposition. But that she said, that good flows through me, and I'm a conduit of good. It gives me goosebumps just even saying that, and that my opportunities are unlimited. And so I went through a life believing that the world was a good place, and that opportunities it wasn't done to me, it came through me. And that I think that was one of my greatest blessings. We started from scratch. I had a degree. I graduated from UC Riverside, and I wanted to be a farmer. I went into the placement office and said, I want to be a farmer. And they said, there's no listing farmer here at UC Riverside. We're producing PhDs, but I see a lot of government jobs. And so I've got a government job working for the County Agricultural Commissioner's Office in Santa Barbara. And I love Santa Barbara, but I realized I'll never own a home. But it gave me perspective to look around and see where there are opportunities. And so from there, I got a job working for a Fortune 500 company as an agricultural consultant. And they sent me to Spokane, Washington, and ended up in Idaho with them. And they had a matched 401k, which was a really good deal. And so I got a degree, I got an ag job. I really had a passion for agriculture, and it gave me an opportunity to see from there that I wanted to be a manager. And they said that I was not management material. And so they said, well, then I'm going to go back to California within a year. And a window opened up, and they transferred me to Bakersfield. And at that time, it wasn't my first choice. But anyway, I went to RCC, Riverside Community College, and then I went to UCR, and then I ended up in Idaho. Vicky's niece, Emily, she, in her life, always was for women's social justice and women's rights issues, and she went and became a lawyer, and now is working for the DA's office in New York. And I said, what are your pillars? What is important to you? And she said, well, it was always women's rights issues. And she said, then when there was a school shooting, now it is also gun control. And those were her 2 pillars. And I thought to myself, and she asked me, what about me? What is my pillars? And I said, well, I have 3. And the first one is education, because with an education, it opens the playing field to any opportunity that you want. The second one is producing food. That there's no great society that can make it without food production, and the greatest food in the world is produced here in California. And then the third one is that you can't do agriculture without energy, and it needs to be comprehensive because you need the transportation, you need the fertilizers. Most of them are made either with energy to produce them or with energy that they're made from for the nitrogen products. And that if you sometimes sit at our fruit stand on Highway 58 or the one that we have on Interstate 5, and you look at other people that are not from the area, say, I just can't believe how many semis are going by, and they're all hauling food. And that transportation, there was a period of time where we were going to outlaw diesel trucks within 10 years. We were going to outlaw diesel tractors within 10 to 13 years. That was 3 years ago. There are no tractors that are not diesel. You know, there's some that are natural gas, but there's no electric tractors. And that I'm a stand for comprehensive energy policies as well. Oh, I wanted to just say one more comment was that the greatest thing that happened was I met Vicki in Idaho, and that I got the transfer to California. I married Vicki. I got the transfer to California. The last thing that I did was I found, we just loved this area. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about that. We bought this little cabin up there for $30,000. And then I moved to Bakersfield and then realized I couldn't buy a home. And so we rented a single room apartment on Real Road. And that's where we lived for the first year that we were here in Bakersfield. But now, 43 years later, we still own that little cabin, and it's still only 20 feet by 20 feet on a river in Idaho. But that, you know, we've been married 23 years, and I have to say it's 20 of the best years of my life. And so there's 20 of the best years of my life out of 43 years. So that's always my favorite joke. And so anyway, Vicki's my wife and the love of my life. And so my family's 4 generations in farming. That what I got into when I moved to Bakersfield was a guy knocked on, I bought a house, traded it for a dilapidated house and farm out in Arvin. And the guy came and said, I want to grow a nursery. And I said, well, you can grow a nursery here, and when you leave, give me 10 acres of cherry trees. And so I always say that if you'd been a pistachio nursery, I would be rich. But we went into cherries, and so we got into it and really doubled down on it. And that, you know, we just doubled down through grit and, you know, just perseverance. And in a quick amount of time, just in 5 or 6 years, we ended up developing a lot of this ground that we had. And then in 2006, we had a freeze. And I went to a cherry meeting in Stockton, and from here to there, it was 19 degrees. And that there was insurance up in Stockton, but they didn't believe cherries would grow in Bakersfield. And it just completely wiped out my crop. And I'd gotten loans, but I got operating line. In agriculture, you have to have an operating line. I had $1.5 million operating line of credit. And then I went into the banker and just froze us out. They said, you got to pay it back every year. You're going to pay back your operating line. And I said, no. So you're going to pay back $1 million of it? No. $500,000 of it? No. Keep going. $250,000 of it? No. I said, I can't pay back any of it. And the banker said, well, then you need to start selling things. And that's when I realized I needed to diversify, and that we were able to find a bank in Stockton that believed in cherries. And he basically, through guaranteed loans from the USDA, loaned me $1.5 million where I put debt on a property that had no debt, and that we diversified. And so now if you go into the Southland markets, we're monsters in the Southland area. We're gorillas down there with the diversity of crops that we grow. And the 6 years, we've been the most loved farm in Santa Monica. That we really emphasize youth, that we get more than 20,000 school kids that come to our farm in the fall. We'll get about half of those in the spring, kids coming out picking blueberries and strawberries and blackberries and whatnot. We have our fall festival. What's ironic is that everywhere you go and you talk to people, they're saying things are really bad. You know, there's a downturn in the economy. This is the best year we've ever had. And we'll have maybe 65,000 people, not including the school children, come to our farm in a 30-day period here in October. That's not to say that we are cutting a fat hog, but another, you know, rotational crop that we put in was a Chevron station, and that also helps us when we have tough times. So our goal is improving the quality of people's lives, and we do it through the fruit that we grow. We do it through, it's good local, much of it is organic, so it's also, very healthy for you. In fact, what we're also doing is creating fond memories grown right here, and that's one of our slogans. We offer meaningful employment, jobs with dignity, community connection. I think with Aaron, that's what you see is his community connection that when I graduated from college, I had a long resume of joining campus activities. Have it so that when you have on your resume, not that you just got a diploma, but that also that you were engaged in this campus, because there's opportunities to join different organizations or within our community, because people, when they're looking to hire you, are looking that you have depth and diversity in your experience and that you applied yourself, not just to your classes, and get community connections. We're known, again, I was chairman of the Chamber of Commerce, been involved in a lot of organizations, but we're known legally, locally, regionally, and worldwide. Aaron was in Wakayama, Japan, and we're part of the Sister Cities program, and that my wife has been to Wakayama multiple times as a, taking youth there, and they're bringing youth here. That's been going on with the Wakayama for 75 years now. And it was done by Eisenhower. He said, you don't go to war with your friends. And that was the goal of it. Because of the diversity of what we're doing in our farming, that it causes 10 times more employment than if we had almonds, we would have 6 employees instead of 100. The dollars that we get, we live in the greater LA area, that's Lamont Arvin, and that they're considered disadvantaged communities. I'm on the school board, and 98% of the students are in the free meals program because it is a disadvantaged community, and we're taking dollars on the export sales from our fruit, on the catching people on the highway, having people come out to our farm, and it is basically all going to employing people in these communities where they get year-round employment, and it's a family affair where there's a lot of family members involved as well. As youth such as yourselves, that when you're looking for what you want to do in your life, you want to find places where you feel like you're part of a greater cause, where there's training and skill development. We have everything from culinary arts in the kitchens to retail sales to tour guides, hospitality. When kids come to our place, and usually it's their first job, say, tell me a place where you've had really great service. You know where the first guess is? Usually they say In-N-Out Burger is the best service that they've had. In-N-Out Burger. And so we said, well, we would like you to hold that in your heart here as well. You want to feel like you have value in what you do, that you enjoy the people you work with and the work environment, and you treat people fairly, that everybody that works for us gets a free lunch, that we have an 80% match 401k. So if you save money and put it into 401k, if you put $1 in, we put another 80 cents into it, allowing you to get nest egg that you can use for buying a home or down payment or other things. But you want to be treated fairly, with respect, with fair wages, with benefits. And a lot of times things happen where you just need some microcredit, and we provide that to our employees as well. So again, that we're looking like we're part of the solution, and we're essential business. When COVID came down, that everything that we did was essential, that we have a restaurant, and we have a pole barn that seats 400 people, so we could seat 100 people at the pole barn. That we're growing food. You pick. It was pumpkins, but it's still you pick. Going to farmers markets were still allowed. We had to give our employees passes to get into Santa Monica. So our revenue comes from wholesale sales, exports, international sales, interstate travelers, southern and coastal markets. And our expenses primarily go to paying wages. It's the biggest part of what we do. We're a local business, and money goes to the government as well. So this is the Big Red Barn. How many of you have been out to the Big Red Barn? That's great. How many of you have been out there as a school group? That's the part that really warms my heart. Thank you. It's good to see that a lot of you have been out there. This is the Big Red Barn. At I-5, we've also got the Little Purple Barn, and it was a tomato weigh station because the farmers didn't trust Heinz on their weights. It seems like the tomatoes were always lighter when they got up to the Heinz tomato factory. And right now we do it more of a seasonal area, and it's going to become one of the biggest you-pick cherry places. So again, at Murray Family Farms, just in the month of October, we'll get more than 60,000 people there. The Kern County Fair gets 450,000 people. They dropped by 150,000. They got 300,000 people this year. We're growing. And they said, the weather was great, but that people are afraid to go out, and that people are not afraid to come out where we are, and that we've never had an incident. Again, we have 100 employees, 20,000 kids in the schools. We have brand partnerships, Plants vs. Zombies, Peanuts, the corn mazes, and we showed Nightmare before Christmas, and we were, we got an authorization. We have entry-level opportunities. We want people to either grow up and in our company or grow up and out of our company and have on their resume that they worked at Murray Family Farms, and it'll cause a smile when you're being interviewed and soften the stress of being in an interview. And again, I told you that we have all kinds of opportunities for work experience that goes onto your resume. The most difficult thing we have with BC and Cal State Bakersfield is you guys don't drive cars. Everybody takes public transportation. It's really hard to get anybody to come out and work for us because it's 18 miles out there, and that it would be worth, considering there's no public transportation, but if you have a car away. This is Vicki and I. This is back when clowns were cool. And my wife, she's the most beautiful witch I've ever seen. We're involved in the community. We have a lot of fruit, and that we contribute to the Gleaners and the homeless shelter. And I was president of the Chamber of Commerce. My wife has been involved with Boys and Girls Clubs. I was on the board for the Convention of Visitors Bureau. We're both involved in sister cities. In fact, that picture was this May when Tony and I, so I've got Tony Hargrove, who is my personal and my wife's personal assistant. He also does much of the work in our publicity. And I've got Rosamund Rife here, who started off as advisor to the president, which is me, and that she just moved in and took over running the whole store, and that and turned everything that was red to black. And that she has a home up in Seattle and a home over in Oxnard, and that 3 or 4 nights a week she stays with us at our house. And she's also our best friend. But Sister Cities, I'm on the DeGeorgia School Board. I'm president of my church board. We've been involved in Warmline, which was a affirmative parenting organization. And I'm on the Farm Bureau board. And that is what Aaron does, is when you have a list of organizations that you're involved in and that you need to emulate him. So it is really beyond all reason or logic. It's an efficient way of farming, small time, intense farming. It's capital intensive, it's management intensive, it's labor intensive, it's high risk, it's long hours, it's low returns. This Easter eggs at Easter time, we had wooden Easter eggs, and so we had Easter egg rolls. It's an opportunity to be creative. That there's a lot of ways that you can get involved in agriculture. You can build bee boxes and become a beekeeper and start from scratch, and you get 10 hives, and you're getting $300 a hive. You can have your money back and then and then make it in honey as well. So you can actually double your money. And that's one of the things I did when I started. The problem for me was every time I got stung, it felt like the first time. What's next on us is that 10 years ago, I saw some cool palm trees and started collecting palm seeds. And so I've got about 8,000 palm trees that have been in the ground 13 years now. And so Tony and I today, we're just focusing on putting together a website, and we're going to go to the largest professional landscapers conference is going to be in St. Louis. So next week, he and I are going to go there and hand out business cards and start selling specimen palm trees. I know that Aaron gave me some questions, but I can look at these questions, or you guys can ask me questions. But yeah. You can ask me those questions.
Sure. You can sit over there, and they have a lot of questions too. So, can we just give Mr. Murray a nice round of applause? You can see he's obviously very generous, not just with all the things he does, but obviously his compliments and stuff too. I was sitting there as he was talking about me. I was like, wow, it's impressive, but I think it's your kindness and generosity. So the students also have questions, but they're typically shy. It takes them a little while to get started. So I'll start with a question, and then they can jump in, and there are 2 microphones on either side. So please, if you want, you can get up, or if not, we'll get the microphones to you. So I'll just want to start with one of the things is that, your story is obviously very inspiring, and you've done a lot of hard work. And you mentioned fourth generation and all these other stuff. But as you were doing this, was there any moment where you felt like you wanted to give up? And if so, what pulled you through?
I think my wife had more of those feelings. I think that ever since I was a child, this was what I wanted to do. When I in high school, I changed to another high school that had an ag program because once I realized I wasn't going to be a veterinarian, then I realized I wanted to be a farmer. And so it was always clear to me that I've had the opportunity to be in fishing boats with a lot of very successful farmers. And that, so you get to say, what was it that, why is it that, why is it that, you're farming and all your cousins and uncles and everybody, none of them are farming. One of the things that he said was that we had good years and we had bad years. We treated the good years like we treated the bad years. Whereas others where they sacrificed for 5 years, then they thought, well, I need to get a new car, I need to get a beach house, I need to do different things I've earned it. And that's one of the criteria, was to treat good years like they were bad years. And then when there's bad years, you have reserves. And that it's tough and it's scary, but that I don't know that I'm also not a very fearful person. And that as I get older, I become more fearful. I have nothing to lose. but again, I would say that agriculture is tough. I got in the 80s, and the 80s were a really, really tough time. People don't realize that was when Ronald Reagan was president, and he was known for cutting taxes. But when he was negotiating, what he gave up was for doctors and lawyers and professionals could buy farmland and have passive losses offset their paychecks. And then they could plant orchards and have them come into production and not pay taxes on it. He took that away, so you had to be a farmer in order to be able to write off your losses. And then fortunately, my 10 acres of grapes paid more money than my paycheck. And so it's a long story, but I got voted as a farmer, and it allowed me to take off those losses. And so a lot of the times when I was developing ground, that I was also being able to double down and continue to, during my worst years, is some of the most expansion that I was able to do. But good question. There are people right now, there's a lot of people right now that would like to sell their almond orchards. They're losing $1,300 a year. You got 100 acres, you're losing $130,000 a year. So that right now, there are a lot of people that like to get out. But that's the time to get in. When people are selling, you need to buy. And when people are buying, you need to sell. And not fall in love with anything that doesn't want you back.
That's a great quote. Does anybody have a question before I move on?
I just want to say that we've been married 43 years.
What did I say?
So
23.
23. So yeah. It's an investment of time to get to where we are.
We're still training each other.
Yeah.
Can I just add the way you're blushing right now says a lot about you?
No,
I said, can I add just the way you're blushing right now says how much you look.
Good observation. Anybody question? I know you all have questions because I've seen it. Don't be shy. Please.
What's something you'd recommend to, like, with your experience to someone like his students? I said like and
I would say try not to take things too seriously. That, as I said before, don't let anything, just can't let you back. If we've had hard times where we had to sell some land, You know, and you just look, you can't
You
look
were the
back.
right person.
He's the right person. yeah.
Easier.
But I would say, you know, if you don't know what you want to do, then don't drop out of school. Stay in school if you're clear on what you want to do. I mean, because I'll go talk to high schools, and I've been to Maricopa, and talk to a bunch of people about ag, and that I said, does anybody here know what they want to do? One guy raised his hand. He said, my aunt, my uncles, my dad, they're all truck drivers. I'm gonna be a truck driver. I said, why aren't you taking truck driving classes? And he said, because in Maricopa, they don't teach it, and they won't transfer me over to Taft, where they have mechanics classes. That he, you know, he was clear on what he wanted to do, but he was just stuck at the wrong school. I would say if you know what you want to do and you're clear on it, don't ever turn. Everything is cyclical.
Before I became a person.
If you like to teach, you know, when I was working, I was a lifeguard, but I was also a swimming instructor. And I just absolutely loved teaching kids how to swim. But I just realized I could never make a living at it. So,
Then we'll teach you.
and teaching has gotten better and better over the years, as far as you can, you know,
Yeah, that's a
you
good
can afford to buy a home. You can, you know, especially if you're both teachers.
have a partner.
Any other questions before I move on to some of the questions I have? Again, don't be shy. Yes. Mr.
I have a
Neiman.
question. First of all, I want to compliment students on being here and reinforce something you said, Mr. Murray, and that was get involved. When I went to school, I didn't get involved, and I think it set me back. And now I'm coming back to CSUB and seeing all the opportunities. Kudos to you guys for taking advantage of those opportunities. I have the privilege of working with the marketing department here at CSUB and talk about branding and all that encompasses everything. You have one of the most iconic structures, buildings in Kern County. People from other places know the Big Red Barn and everything. Was that intentional on your part, or did that just come with the quality of the work and the business that you did? Or maybe a combination of both, I guess?
It was all my wife.
Okay.
That when we were, what happened was that, you know, when we started having the beginnings of cherry crops, and some of them weren't, you know, we'd send them to the packing house, and the number two, they wouldn't give us any money for them. And so we started going with our babies in backpacks to farmers markets. So we started in Santa Barbara and then Ventura, eventually got into Santa Monica. And that our babies who would walk around the farmers markets and trade bags of cherries for, unique and exotic fruit. We realized how much we loved doing it, and we realized how special the fruit was that we were growing. And so my wife, there was a property that was at that off-ramp, and it was owned by Birch Bergstold, who has a tractor company, and Jimmy Arcardo. And I kept coming back to that. I can't say this with Jimmy Cardo had a nickname for me, and I can't say it. But he bought that land for $200 an acre. Thought he was selling it, you know, way too cheap to me. But they liked my passion, and they sold that ground to us. And my wife, you know, basically designed all of everything there that is pretty and is artistic and is beautiful. That was my wife's creativity, and everything that's in straight rows. That was me. We were landscaping our yard, and that my friend said, "Steve, you're a farmer. Don't plant your yard like a farm."
Well, and where I'm from in Detroit, there's huge agritourism. And you wouldn't think so, but Michigan is, grows a lot of cherries. Oh,
Michigan, Detroit, Michigan, there was a lot of agritourism in the surrounding areas because Michigan also has a lot of farms, and they grow apples everywhere. And so in Detroit, we could go in any direction and go to a cider mill and pick apples. And so that was my childhood growing up. And so that, Steve and I have always been a great team, and that's kind of was the impetus for the idea of let's do U-Pick, let's do agritourism.
How am I doing so far on my answers, honey?
So then walk around.
sure.
So you can chime in too. Anybody else with a question? Here, I'll walk around with this.
How you guys doing?
Fabulous.
Not a care in the world.
What advice would you give to those who are considering going into the agriculture field or farming especially?
I think one of the greatest things that I had was that I had a job that provided me with a pickup truck and insurance and vacation time, and that I worked for 25 years for somebody else and concurrently was farming. And so I would say, don't be in a hurry to quit your day job. And I would just say, follow your passion. If it's what you love to do, then you don't work ever a day in your life. Work is the thing you do when it's no longer fun anymore. Right now, and a lot of people in agriculture, it's not fun. They've worked a long time and they had very easy street there for a long time. But there's a lot of people that are willing to work with you to get into it. But I would say, have mentors, be involved. It's not, it's who you know. And so join Farm Bureau if it's agriculture, join other organizations that are central to what you want to do. And, because in the end, you want people to throw you a bone that that can give a reference or a referral, or when things open up, that you want to always know that you are being watched as a potential employee, and that you want to be what they're looking for.
Always do your best. Just do your best and be willing to. Because life is more fun that way. If you just give it your all and you give it all your passion, whatever you do, you're going to enjoy your life more. You're going to be more motivated. You're going to be happy. You're going to attract those kind of people to you. And so just give it your best shot.
Any other questions from the audience?
Hi, Daisy Warren. There's often debate between maximizing short-term profit and investing in sustainable practices. How should we as young leaders think about balancing these priorities in today's ag economy?
Could you repeat? Hold it closer to your mouth.
Okay. There's often a debate between maximizing short-term profits and investing in sustainable practices. How should we as young leaders think about balancing these priorities in today's ag economy?
I would say that usually, depending on what you're doing, that the sustainable practices, because we have about a third of what we do is organic, and that where we are selling direct to the public, there's a premium that is paid for organic products. And so they go hand in hand on being sustainable, organic. There's various levels. There's one that's called biodynamic. And it sounds like it would be sustainable. You just let nature have its share and you get what's left, but it's not necessarily profitable. So you do the right thing. Treat people fairly, but I know that you went through the California Agricultural Leadership. You were class, and I was in class 27, and that I would say that Bakersfield, the Chamber of Commerce has a leadership program. Apply for it. That there's 20, 30 students that go through a year where you get to get perspective of law enforcement, you get to see the medicine, you get to see agriculture, you get to see oil. Broaden your horizons and look at what's around you. I don't know if that's the answer that you're looking for, but the Ag Leadership Program did more for me that when my dad died, that I was just going into community college, and that I was involved in activities, but at the university, I needed to get out and get a job. And so my university experience I wish that I could have more time, but that it was the Ag Leadership Program that I took where you get with leaders and get a leadership mentality that I was in a single class where it was the head of the planning department. And back then they had overhead projector. And he said, this is the history of Los Angeles development. And these overlays, it said, this is 1900, 1910. And it's driving up, all the growth is going up the freeways and out the laterals. He said, this is Sacramento 20 years later. He said, this is Bakersfield starting in 1930. this has taken Bakersfield out to 2030. And all the growth went up and out the laterals. And just being in that leadership class, I was farming on the intersection of 2 dirt roads. And I thought, if I can ever get a freeway off ramp, then that will benefit my kids. And it wasn't, it was just a nugget that I got in the ag leadership program that caused me to be able to buy, in a serious downturn, buy 2 freeway off ramps. And it changed my life. And that a lot of times what you find is there is nuggets that are out there in everything that you do, and a lot of people don't hear them or see them. There was a lot of people in that class that did not buy freeway off ramps.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the audience?
How has or will your business adapt to the challenges of global warming?
I don't think that there is any business that's more affected by climate than growing cherries. And in particular, the things that you don't pay attention to is what is happening in the wintertime, where our trees need to have winter chilling. And that so we've had 10 years of exceptionally warm weather here. I think that it's tough. I do farm tours. I'll go up to Canada, and their cherries are going farther and farther north in the Okanagan Valley, which is that's their banana belt. People are now growing cherries in areas that was too cold before to grow. So I don't know that there's a lot that I can do to control climate change. There are things that I do that other people don't do. That I take kaolinite clay and paint my trees white in the summertime to keep them chill. And in the wintertime, when we have enough water, I run overhead sprinklers to get the winter chilling. When it's 60 degrees in December, my trees are 20 degrees cooler. And so there's a lot of innovative things that we can do. When they restrict your water, then you put in intensive water conservation measures, monitors, so that you can farm on less water. But on the other hand, the one thing I'd like to say is that I've been that picture there in China or in India. Tony went with me with the Sister Cities program. That we went to India, and they've got 1.6 billion people, and that we went to the Taj Mahal. And there was three lanes and 6 rows of cars, and everybody on the sides are burning cow poop to cook food for the travelers. That if you look in California at that time, that we were going to stop diesel engines in 13 years. That it is illegal for me to burn anything outside, and you can't buy a wood-burning fireplace. If you apply the restrictions in India, that California with 30 million people compared to 1.6 billion, because there it is just black sky, they would stop and die. And the same thing is true in China. I've been to China, and they've also got 1.5 billion people, and that you cannot see anything because they're burning coal, and they're putting in every week, what I hear is another coal. The way that the negotiations are, that until 2035, China can continue to burn more and more fossil fuels until they hit a peak in 2035. And then they have to start restricting their emissions. And the same thing is in India. And so you can't have 30 million people offset the pollution that is happening from 3.5 billion people without having them participate as well. We just cannot make it clean up. But what we can do is significantly lower the standard of our lives. And so it's got to be balanced. That I think that we have gotten a lot of the low-hanging fruit off. That as far as what we're doing, it's good what we're doing. That our valley's cleaner, it's healthier. We're not getting all these pollutants in our lungs, and we're doing the right thing. But that we are also significantly lowering the standard of living. And right now it's hitting you guys the most. When you go out to try to buy a house, a car, like a job, that we need good paying jobs. And a lot of them are in these environmentally positive things. I'm making money off of being environmental in my farming choices, even though the stuff that's not organic, that we make conscientious choices because they make sense. But that it's definitely, we're in a hot spell, but I sit and, and I don't watch TV very much, but when you watch the news, and it will say the hottest day in record was in 1905. And it's frequently like 1903, what happened in 1905 and 1903 that it would be hotter than it is today on this day? And that the droughts, if you look at like California, the driest year, 3 years in a row, were preceded by the wettest. The Capitol building in Sacramento was so flooded that it was just the peak of the top of the dome of the Capitol building was underwater, and Governor Stanford was in a boat doing his commencement, and what he said was the greatest risk to California was Chinese immigration. And you couldn't even see the Capitol building. And that the next 3 years was the driest years in the history of California, and that half of all the cows in California died from starvation. First half they drowned, and the second half, and we're talking, 1861 was wetter and was drier within the same decade than it is now. So there are seasonal cycles, but that clearly humans are impacting this. But there is also sunspots and other things. I mean, what they're saying is that all of the pollution that China puts in the air is actually cooling the globe because it lets less light in. And that we're going to have worse problems when they get better at their scrubbers and their smokestacks. So that's a situation where global pollution is cooling the earth. It's crazy, but that all I can do is just do what I can do here locally, and that we work heavily with composting, the health. It's all about the soil. That we put in, we got a grant, and we put in 8 tons per acre per year for 3 years on a third of all of our land on a grant. And the irony is that I have a Chevron station, and the taxes that I paid on my Chevron station help pay for the compost that I put into my ground, fixing carbon and improving my dirt. And so taking advantage of those resources that were available to us. But my wife didn't want me to put in a gas station because she didn't think it was sustainable. But with that, we're able to give 80% matched 401k to our employees, and treat them, fairly and kindly.
Anybody else have a question here? Or on that side? There's one question over there.
This question could go for both of you guys. What has been
Hold it to your mouth.
for both of you guys? What has been one of your guys' favorite memories from working with the community?
It's easier to talk about our favorite memories than our saddest memories. Go ahead.
Well, it started out when we used to go to Santa Barbara, and we just had our first 40 acres, and we didn't have enough cherries to go to sell at wholesale or anything. So we picked cherries from our trees, and we would go to Santa Barbara, and we had 3 children. Sadly, one of our sons passed away 8 years ago from hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, which is a heart defect, which is fairly common.
Our daughter is on her 3rd kidney.
Our daughter's on her 3rd kidney. But we would go to Santa Barbara, and we had our 2 kids, and I was pregnant. And our son, Stephen, would just run around the Santa Barbara farmer's market and find weird, rare fruit. And my daughter would get bouquets of flowers. And it was an era when children weren't getting abducted. We were there. Steve and I would work. We had Julia Child. We had lots of celebrities that would come up, and we'd sell cherries. We'd bust our butt. We were up all night the night before. And we'd go to the farmer's market, and then we'd work really hard, and we'd make a couple $100, and we were thrilled. And we'd take a nap. We'd go to Taco Bell and take a nap on the beach because we had to leave at 4 a.m. to get to Santa Barbara. And, you know, we just had so much fun. We moved into the house and it was a mess. And I pulled up the carpeting and there was dead rats underneath. And we didn't have water in my kitchen for 25 years because we had to buy a tractor instead.
It was 19. It was only 19 years.
It was 25 years. Did not have water in my kitchen. So I had to carry my dishes into this giant laundry room because it was a farmhouse and they had this giant sink and this big giant tin metal. And I wanted to save it all because it was so cool and old. And when we remodeled, the guys put it in the junk pile. I was so sad. But they were growing fruit there and they were washing their fruit in that sink. And so that worked out great for us because we're washing and sorting fruit. We have this big area, this giant, laundry room. And that's helped us when we were going to Santa Barbara. And so Santa Barbara was our first farmer's market. And I would just say that overall, we've had so much fun together. We've done so much. Our kids are both very involved in the company. Our daughter is the HR manager. Even though she struggles, both my kids are so smart, like Steve. They have my wit and personality, and they have his brains. But Steve is very, very smart, and our son speaks 10 languages.
Been to 110 countries now.
Yeah, and he loves to
paid for
travel.
it all from working in the farmers markets for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to Brazil this next week, and then he's going to go on an extensive tour. He's going to do a cruise of the Persian Gulf, and that he's also tying in Tonga
And so look him up. It's Stephen Murray's Rare Fruit. He goes to all these countries and he finds fruit that's not hybridized. So when you buy an apple, you guys are egg people. When you buy an apple or any fruit in the store, it's a hybrid fruit that's been utilized for its big, pulpy, fleshy, part of the fruit with a little bit of seeds. Well, rare fruit grows out on bushes and trees in the country, and it's tiny little fruits, So he does his videos and he's got this tiny little fruit and he's going, wow, this is amazing, And so it's a very different thing, but it's a really cool thing. There's a lot of people out there that are into rare fruit. So that would be a fun thing to do.
And he's got one of the largest collections of rare fruit, legally collected small seeds that are not related to any of our agronomic crops. And we're right now got a grant to put in 5 hoop houses. And so there's grants out there if you're looking at getting into agriculture, that whether you're in school or whether you're out of school, that there are opportunities to get financing for your dreams, or free.
All right, so I want to thank both of you, and especially Steve, for...
Not so much you.
Of course not. I mean, you guys are obviously
It's
partners
always
in all
funny.
of this.
Steve, nice knowing you.
But it's very generous of you to give your time, share your knowledge, your experience in all of this. And I know for the students, and I can speak on their behalf, it's always inspiring to hear stories, especially from where you started to where you are, all the hard work, the family values and all that. So really, really want to thank you both for that. So thanks everybody for your time.